Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for another episode of the Amazing Podcast. And this is a podcast where we focus a lot on cloud native, on Kubernetes, and we want to talk to the coolest startups that are doing some really innovative stuff in this space. And we brought you many of them over the past year already. And today is no exception. We're going to be talking about some really cool technology today as well. I'm Twain Taylor, editor at amazic.com. And I have with me Eli Birger. He is the CTO and the co-founder of PerfectScale. So Eli, welcome. It's great to have you here with us. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it's a great pleasure to be here, Twain. Thank you very much.
All right. So the topic for today is going to be right-sizing Kubernetes and kind of optimizing it so that you can save on costs, but more importantly, improve performance without compromising on any performance. That's kind of the topic, the space we're talking about. So we're excited to get started about this. Eli, if you could get us started with just talking about, telling us a bit about yourself, your journey up until PerfectScale. That would be a great way to get our podcast started.
Yeah, so I went through different roles during my career. I started my career as a software QA engineer, like testing stuff, mainly in big telecoms. Very fast, I moved to the management role, and then I felt like I haven't had enough hands-on, so I moved to the post-sale, where I led large implementation of large-scale systems in telecom. For at least 2 years, I traveled around the world from project to project, installing big systems. It was very exciting, but it was time to move, so I moved to configuration management. I had this passion of in a QA, I had this passion of building stuff right. So as a QA, I always made sure that the customer getting the best possible experience with our product. Moving to the post-sale, closer to the customer needs, to understand better the customer needs and to communicate them back to the company. And then configuration management, I moved closer to the code. Even before it's released to the QA, I gather the problems there. And then DevOps evolved, and I evolved together with DevOps. So that's a little bit of my journey, like passion to the big systems, right?
That's pretty cool that you've been kind of moving, sort of shifting left, if you could say, in your career. Which were some of the companies the companies that you worked with, some of the technologies that you worked with?
Yeah, so I started my journey in telecom in a company those days named Converse. It's part of Mavenir now. It's a relatively big telecom company providing SMS, voicemail, mobile networking, and so on and so far. I moved to IBM. I spent several years in Imperva in the cybersecurity area. Then I moved again to the telecom Vonage, big company those days, and then to Siren, which is again cybersecurity. So my networking, cybersecurity, storage, and telecom, that's my kind of areas of expertise.
Okay, neat. So, to get us started, the economy is actually looking quite gloomy, and there's just the macroeconomic factors. The financial condition is quite tight, and a lot of startups are finding it difficult for cash flow. A lot of not just startups, even the biggest, the most well-known tech giants having massive layoffs. So we're kind of in this time where it's kind of like the 2000 bubble after a long time, kind of hitting tech, something of that sort. So it's a time when organizations are looking at costs more closely, trying to cut back. And one of the big culprits when it comes to spend happens to be Kubernetes, and generally cloud as well. But yeah, Kubernetes is quite a big chunk of that spend. And What would you say are some of the reasons for Kubernetes turning out to be, more expensive than organizations would expect?
Yeah, so great question, Twain. So let's divide it into two parts. So first part is the economy. You're absolutely right. Half a year ago, when we spoke to the prospects, many of them say, hey, or potential customers, many of them say, hey, I don't care about the cost. I care about, I'm growing now. I'm doing things fast. I need, I don't care how much I'm wasting. I just need everything work, and that's it. Leave me alone. So they like the resilience part, which we are also threatening. But the cost was kind of nice to have thing. Okay, we have like three types of problems: the pain, the gain, and the nice to have. So the resilience has always been and remains the pain. The cost was somewhere between gain to nice to have, and now with the shift in economy, it moved also to the pain. So it's fun. And talking about why there is actually a big problem around Kubernetes. So organizations are adopting Kubernetes in order to move fast. What does it mean? It means we completely abstracted the cloud for you. You are a developer. You have the full control of spinning up whatever resources you need. And let's think about it for a minute. What we basically did, we put a pile of money in the middle of a company and said, hey, everyone now allowed to take as much as he needs. And we completely believe and trust that everyone will take as much as he needs, not too much and not too less, and he will not be shy. Also, we will not control it in any way, and we will also not review any of those decisions. That's why Kubernetes basically became a problem, because with one click of a button, I can spin my service everywhere. And unless it will alert me on something, I will not go and check its well-being.
Yeah, really interesting. And so I think, as a result, organizations are kind of getting sticker shock. They look at their cloud bill and it's been skyrocketing. And how does this affect the different roles? So there are different people involved in, one person approving spend, another utilizing the budget. There's different roles within the organization. So what are the different roles when it comes to, Kubernetes spend, and how do each of them view spend, within the organization differently?
Yeah, so the entire industry made the complete shift from very structured kind of here is an R&D and here is the operations, and there is a communication and a budget approvals and all the stuff. But all this shift left paradigm with the cloud native brought everywhere the situation where developers are in full control of what's going on in cloud. And there is also a new role of FinOps, the guys who tracking those spends in a cloud. Very, very nice organization, growing very, very fast with very nice approach to control everything. However, control alone is important, but not enough. We need also to understand, and that's the missing part that PerfectScale is kind of comprehending, is this spend justified? Even before it was spent, how much resources do we actually need, not only where we spend them.
Okay. Interesting. And kind of brings to mind this term that, we hear, but, which is really important to understand about right sizing. And how would you explain right sizing? What does it mean to right size Kubernetes?
Yeah, great question. So Kubernetes, think of it as on one hand, you can think of it as a building. Okay, you build first of all the foundations, and then you build the flooring, and then you run the pipes and then electricity and all this stuff. Now, if you build your foundations too big for the actual needs, you're wasting money. if your foundations are not good enough, or your piping is not good enough, or any other aspect, like there is a day one of operation where you're building stuff, there is the day two of operation, which is continuous maintenance of what you built. And this is where stuff becomes more complex, because on one hand, Kubernetes is elastic. And utilizing elasticity of a cloud can bring amazing results in terms of cost efficiency and resilience. But achieving those goals is not simple, because there is a lot of moving parts. The Kubernetes is colossal beast with a lot of moving parts. The nodes, the pods, replicas, jobs, everything is in constant move. And your load, the demand of customers, is also in a constant move. How do we match those two to the perfect scale? This is what we do.
Yeah, and talking about, well, perfect scale, it kind of talks about balance, how do you reach that optimum kind of, balance between cost versus performance? And that's what I want to ask you about even, next, which is just, cost versus performance. When you hear that, normally there's the assumption that it's one or the other. You can't have both in many cases. If you want to save on cost, you're going to have to compromise on performance. And if you want real performance, you're going to have to spend. Yeah, does PerfectScale think that both is possible? Would you say both is possible? What are your thoughts on this cost versus performance?
Yeah, so basically every company aims to have the best possible performance at the lowest possible cost in their environments. And those kind of contradicting forces on one hand. On the other hand, there is an elasticity built in. And if utilized right, you can achieve this result. On one hand, let's call it this way, you build your charge for Sunday. You're building your system to withstand the most load of your customers. On the other hand, you cannot build it in advance in this way, because then all the rest of the time you will just waste a lot of resources. So you have to build this elasticity right. That's the key. And yes, it's possible. You can have perfectly scaled environment that scales up and scales down fast enough and resilient enough to withstand whatever comes.
Really cool. So I want to talk a bit about, as organizations try to make this balance between cost and performance, they try different things. And obviously, organizations are doing their best. Teams, are working hard, trying to get the most value out of their spend. But, you've been around, you've talked to many people, who run Kubernetes, who've tried optimizing things their own way. And I want to ask just what are some of the anti-patterns that you have seen, some of the bad practices that actually hurt more than help? If you could share some of those.
Yeah, so few bad practices that I met is nearly every organization at some point in time try to make optimization. Normally, the first and initial and the focus is let's just review the most expensive workloads. How do we know which are most expensive? Those ones with a lot of resources in. Okay, and they found themselves with elastic searches, with databases, with different big persistent kind of workloads that very hard to optimize because they are not elastic by nature. When it comes to the elastic parts where you can easily optimize and easily achieve your goals, the things are becoming more complex, because you need to understand, you need to analyze a lot of data, and you need to give exact amount of resources. Let's think about it. Okay, I have a workload which is extremely over provisioned. Okay, I need only 4 GB of memory, but I'm reserving 20 GB of memory. But this is a job running for 1 minute in a month. Should I optimize? Should I invest in that? No. On the other hand, I have tiny workload, which is over provisioned by 15%, but I have 200 replicas of this running 24/7 during a month. The impact of reducing this waste will be enormous. So in terms of best practices, guessing right numbers, trying to utilize, trying to focus only on the big chunks, not using proper tools. There is a lot of tools in the market, the tools of observability, monitoring, FinOps solutions. All those are built in a way of pets and not the cattle. I don't know how you're familiar with this paradigm, but this is like very important paradigm that we are coming from. So pets versus cattle. Let's say you have a server and you want to know everything about the server. So you're building a dashboard for the server, and you can in one site understand whatever goes on with the server. But if you have 1,000 of those servers, and those servers going up and down, you cannot build any more a dashboard, or if you will build this dashboard, you will not be able to observe this amount of information. This is a cattle. You need a special tools to manage your cattle. Most of the organization have at least 3 clusters dev staging production. Most of organizations do deployments every day. Most of organizations utilizing some kind of auto-scaling inside. So this is a cattle that constantly moves, and you need different tools to analyze those.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the word you mentioned there is really key, auto-scaling, because, I think humans can't possibly sit and watch for when there's a spike and quickly spin up new instances. It obviously wouldn't work that way. So I think automation is really important to really solve this problem. And just being able to react really quickly. And so, on that note, I think it's a good time for us to talk a bit about even what you do at PerfectScale. And if you could tell us a bit about how, so we've got the backdrop, we've understood the challenges, the pain points. If you could get into a bit of the solution and specifically PerfectScale approach to the solution, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. So if you don't mind, I will share one picture or one slide about what we are doing here, and just explain it. It will explain us a little bit better, maybe. So every time when we're talking about optimization, okay, that's the very, very typical and very, very simple approach of optimization. What we do, we have to find the place where we are unoptimized in terms of resources, in terms of auto-scaling triggers, whatever. Then we need to analyze what could be improved. Then we plan and execute the changes. And then there is additional step, which is not listed here, of coming later on and validating that what we did is actually helps. And when it comes to the Kubernetes, when we have multiple clusters, multiple workloads, many chefs in the kitchen, developers doing deployments every day, multiple times a day. The customer patterns, the customer usage pattern are changing between the clusters and during the different hours in the day. This works become humanly impossible to do. How do you know where to start? If you go one by one, okay, I have 5 clusters, each cluster contains 50, 60 workloads. Which one I should start with? Which one will have at the end the most impact? That's here. And then I need okay, so let's assume I started with someone. I have my target now. Now I need to gather a lot of information across scattered resources of how, what's the utilization, how is justified, what would be the impact of optimization, and only then I can drive here. So it's not scalable process. And what PerfectScale does differently, PerfectScale observes automatically everything that happened in a cluster. And then it runs the analysis to identify issues of both types, the under-provisioning on different levels of Kubernetes, which may harm your resilience, or over-provisioning where you simply wasting money. Then it prioritizes all the findings with combines the finding with the impact and prioritize them according to the impact. So at the end of the day, you get the recommendation, and those recommendations are provided with underlying evidences. So you clearly understand why we set this as a problem, and also we are recommending what is the fix for this problem. So with all the underlying evidences inside, so you can act quickly. And once you, and about the acting quickly, so again, this is you can execute manually, you can change your code, you can run CI/CD, you can set automation, you can set even a GitOps, you can utilize the GitOps way of doing things. We support all of them. And eventually, what is most interesting for the managers, you can understand how system behaves over time, what are the improvements that you were able to achieve and can be proud of.
Really cool. So this is kind of like the, the top level view of the solution and, how it works and what different problems it solves. And that's great. And so now if we could get into a bit of the details to just find out, what happens under the hood. How does PerfectScale actually work? I think you have a demo for us. So maybe we could move to that now. So maybe even while you're getting the demo ready, you recently launched a SaaS version of PerfectScale, and I saw that was a recent update, a PR update. So if you could tell us a bit about that, what's new with your SaaS version?
Yeah, so SaaS version is basically takes all the maintenance out of the teams. You don't need to maintain anymore anything related to the right sizing and right scaling. You just install a tiny stateless agent with with the tiniest possible footprint. We're talking here about a few millicores of CPU and completely neglectable amount of network goes out, because we are not sending any raw metrics. We are analyzing everything in place. We're sending some telemetry to the SaaS, and we're doing all the heavy lifting on the SaaS side. So unlike the many competitors, you don't have to maintain the entire system in each and every cluster just to have these capabilities of optimizing and knowing how much everything costs and so on and so forth. So that's the big thing. Another big thing is that you can connect to the same system many of multiple clusters and multiple clouds, and we are completely agnostic to the vendor of the cloud or the type of the Kubernetes that you are utilizing, either it's EKS, GKE, COPS, bare metal, we don't care. Everything will work fine. So the main benefit is like you don't have maintenance, and you get the multi-cloud, multi-cluster holistic view of everything. Let me demonstrate that. All right,
so it's demo time. So Eli, show us what PerfectScale can do.
Yeah, so let's start with this overview. This is where all the clusters are. For each cluster, we know where it is running. In this case, all of them running in AWS, but in different regions. For each cluster, we know how much did we spend, how much was the waste for last month, and how many problems do we currently have that requires our attention. We're also adding very soon the carbon footprint, because not many people talking about that, but everyone knows about the climate change. And by reducing cost, we're also reducing unneeded resources. We're reducing the carbon emissions and making our planet much, much greener. So we are adding this aspect to the equation. So this is our view. And from here, for example, this is my cluster, and my cluster have 36 different problems and some amount of waste. So we can look at all of my applications. This is all of the things that I have. I have 74 different workloads here. Deployments, stateful sets, daemon sets, jobs, whatever things I have in my cluster. For each one, I can know exactly how much how much I spent during last month, and what was the waste. For example, for this workload, $33 were spent, out of which $26 were completely wasted. How come? Let's see. So someone at some point in time decided that we would need somewhere around 2.3 gigabytes of memory to run this workload. However, looking at this workload, in 95% of the time during a month, the consumption didn't cross 1.4 gigabyte. And the highest spike during a month was again 1.4. So there is no real good reason to waste 50% of memory. Same goes for the CPU. Our CPU consumption is somewhere around 0.96 millicores, and the maximum was 210, and we're wasting like nearly 2 cores of CPU. So we're coming with recommendations of how much resources do you need to run safely. We're analyzing all the seasonality waves of your load, the spikes, and everything that happened during a month. We're calculating the probabilities of each and every occurrence, and we're coming with a solution. So here is a solution. This is how much you need to set. If it's a production grade workload, there is adjustment here, so you can set it in the highest level, and we will recalculate everything. You will basically save a little bit less, but you will have much higher headroom for your workload. All those recommendations are here, set as a YAML, copy, paste, infrastructure as a code, CI/CD, you're done with the problem. Also, you can, okay, so we have all those here in the YAML. And in some situations, I'm not the owner of the service. I'm a DevOps manager. I see this and I want to save this money, but I will not do any changes to the service because there is a service owner. So I can create a task. This task will go directly to Jira and will contain all needed information about the actual changes that need to be done and the impact, and I can track the execution later on. Also, this execution could be set to the completely autonomous way, okay? And PerfectScale will take care and adjust resources in place as it needed, and we're adding the GitOps integration soon, so you will have additional button here that will create a PR to the relevant repo, to the relevant values, to help you to adjust your workloads. Same, okay, so this is on the side of waste. And as we can see, we are wasting, this is our utilization during the months. As we can see, we're utilizing nearly half of our infrastructure and make much, and we can save like half of the cost. But also, despite the fact that half of our infrastructure is unused, we still have problems, for example, out of memories. Some workloads, let's look at this one, for example, some workloads are set in a way that they cannot withstand the actual workload. Those settings might be correct at the moment they was set, but since then everything changed. You deployed new version with heavier query. You changed something in the data struct. Those 5 gigabytes of memory are not enough anymore. And yes, you can have alert on that, but this alert will pop up and will be removed very, very fast because we have 6 replicas. So this replica will fail, the replica will come back, and everything will fine. No one will get and look into that. So this is the aggregation over the months where you can adjust your work and do the important things first. All those problems are here, and you can see all of them here. Okay, the next thing is the managers. And the managers are actually, like normally what managers see is the bill. The bill of Kubernetes growing every month. And the question that manager normally have is, okay, but why? What happened? Why we spent $800 here in January, and we now spending $1,600, and how much we're gonna spend next month? We want to know that, right? So I'm as a manager, I have two choices: try to figure it out by my own, ask people. You know, it's a very hard job. But in this case, I can see my clusters by namespace. And what will I see? That the apps, this is the one that go up. And if I will divide it to the weeks view, I will see that it was relatively flat, but then the cost increased, and it's increased in the week of 12 to 19th. And I want to understand what exactly happened here, so I can dive into workloads. And what I will see in the workloads, even on a day view, I will see that we were pretty stable until this point where someone started some kind of maybe experiment. This experiment might be justified and might be not, but at least I know why my price grow. And also I see the trend over time. So I see that that was one-time anomaly.
Okay. Wow. That's really cool. Great way to drill down into the issue.
Yes, and this is in 3 clicks, I can dive into risks, cost, waste of all of my clusters, single cluster, all of my spaces, namespaces, etc., and I can get the answers very fast by my own with zero preparations, building dashboards, maintenance, or anything else.
Really cool. So this is a lot of information that you get to analyze and troubleshoot what's happening. So once you figured out that, okay, this is the issue, is there any way that PerfectScale helps you with even implementing those changes? Is there any automation, automatic remediation, anything of that sort in place?
Yeah, so as I said, we are currently in we are currently in the last stages of developing our automation. By last stages, I mean that some of our design partners already have it in place working, and we are gathering their feedback. So we are going to release it within a month or 2 months to the general availability to the whole market. So you will be able to set this automation on a level of cluster, namespace, or workload, and you will be able to define what exactly you want to achieve with this automation, only help you with the resilience and the cost, and so on and so forth. So we're trying to make it as flexible as possible, but contain all needed safeguards around this automation, because the most important thing is to keep those things running without disruptions.
All right. Wow. Okay. And patterns and trends, that's something that I saw that on your website, you talk about that PerfectScale reports and the trends and patterns. And obviously I see that, there's some really cool reporting in your product. Could you tell us about how PerfectScale analyzes patterns? What kind of patterns and trends does it spot, and how those can help with optimizing your clusters?
Yeah, sure. So what happens with nearly every system on day 2? Nearly every system have these seasonality waves of the utilization. If it's a development cluster, normally developers coming in the morning using the cluster, in the evening they're not using the cluster, and you can safely scale it down and save some money and then scale it up. Your production systems have normal seasonalities of, for example, in the Monday morning, you see more traffic and then in the evening, less traffic. And then during the weekend, it could be pretty flat, or the opposite. Okay, you are kind of Eventbrite or something like that. And then you see periodical high spikes when something interesting is coming. So being able to predict those spikes, to adapt to those spikes, to take them in account, and overall trends. Like I'm a company in growth, so when I'm looking at the data over a long period of time, I can see those trends going up or down for particular areas of my application, for particular clusters, namespace, workloads, and I can adjust accordingly in advance, not react anymore to the alerts, but react to the analytics, which comes much before the actual problem occurred.
So how long does it take till PerfectScale can actually spot trends and patterns? Does it take a few weeks to months of using PerfectScale that you actually get those patterns and trends, or is it much sooner?
Yeah, so for the resilience problems, the detection is immediate. You can start implementing resilience recommendations like for pod evictions, for out of memory, for CPU throttling, and any other kind of resilience issues that you see in the system, you can implement them immediately. For the cost reduction purposes, we recommend to wait at least 1 week, where data becomes significant enough to take decisions.
Okay, neat. And how soon does it take for your customers to see initial results once they implement PerfectScale?
So they can achieve those results immediately. It's mainly based on their pace of implementing the recommended changes or enabling the automation, which is coming soon.
Which are some of the initial results that you see customers, some of the good things that they see as they implement?
Yeah, so we have a few case studies. You are welcome to check them on our website, but we were able to achieve somewhere between 40 to 70% cost reduction without sacrificing resilience for multiple customers.
Oh, that's awesome. So 40 to 70% cost reduction. Yeah, and how long did it take to achieve it on average for some of those customers? Are we talking in the first month itself, they've seen a significant 30, 40% reduction? What's an approximate thing? How long does it take?
So again, if after a week you're starting with implementing the cost reduction, most likely immediately you will see your bill is going down.
Wow,
so
amazing!
It's really immediate thing.
And how does pricing work for PerfectScale? Is it priced by instance or by something else?
Yeah, so first of all of our customers are getting 30 days trial for free and no commitment. So you can try our tool, you can onboard as many clusters as you want, and you can implement the changes before we actually go into the commercial part. The second thing to mention is we are always be on the cost positive side, which means the ROI will the return that we will get from the tool will always cover the costs associated with the tool. The pricing itself based on the amount on the cost of the compute that we are monitoring. For example, if your total compute of your cluster is $50,000 a month, then the license will cost somewhere between $500 to $1,000, depends on the set of features that you want.
All right. Pretty cool. Yeah, good to know that it's cost positive, and yeah, I'm sure that there's a lot of savings that come from just using PerfectScale itself. So someone who's listened to this podcast, watched the demo, who's excited to get started, how do they get started? Where they go, and how do they get to take PerfectScale for a spin?
Yeah, so currently the way to start is to schedule to book a demo with us. This is a single button on our website. Click the button, get the demo, and get it installed by end of the demo. The installation takes around 5 minutes. That's all. For soon, we will be available on the marketplaces, so you will be able to start even by your own without need of meeting spending 30 minutes of meeting together.
All right. Okay, that's really cool. So with that, we come to the end of the main questions on PerfectScale for today. And thank you so much, Eli, for just giving us a great explanation of what it means to right size Kubernetes and save costs without compromising on resilience. And the demo was pretty cool. I think I was pretty, blown away by the, the level of detail that it showed, how much you're wasting for each workload. I think that was really cool that you could drill down to that particular workload and look at the exact dollar amount you're wasting. It really becomes real, when you look at it that way. So really cool product there. Before you go, Eli, just wanted to get to know you a bit. So we got a couple of questions for you. What would be your alternate career path if not for your job in tech?
Yeah, so I have I like everything related to the order of big things. So something around, let's say, big logistics, something around maybe producing of videos or producing events. This is what I like many organized moving parts. That's my passion.
Do you enjoy attending like a KubeCon or something?
Yeah, and by the way, we will be on the KubeCon in Amsterdam and then on Detroit. Come visit. I will be on both of them. I will be happy to chat with anyone.
Sure. Yeah, KubeCon EU, Amsterdam. So if anyone is there, definitely go and catch up with PerfectScale. I won't be there myself, but the team is going to be there. Amazing. So we can set something up for Amazing to meet you guys. And so your next question, the moment that you knew you were going to be a programmer.
So it always interested me. I'm 46 years old. I was born in 76, so I had the chance to even start with the first the first computer that I used the punch cards, and I'm not joking. So wow. So it's always excited me to see it from to see the entire picture from the beginning, how we went from entire big building with the punch cards to something that I can wear on my on my arm. Yeah.
So I mean, but do you remember any particular phase when you got most excited about computers, or anything in particular that you could share?
Yes. So the particular moment, and I did different things during my life, but there was one moment when one of the guys in the company that I worked as a student, he was about leaving, and I asked him, "Where are you living, actually?" And he said, "I'm leaving to learn software engineering." I said, "Why software engineering?" And he said, "Software engineers, they are like pilots. All the rest of the people in the company are to support them. They are doing the most important thing." That was the moment for me to understand that, yes, this is where I want to be also.
Wow, really cool story. Developers, the new kingmakers, the book. Yeah. Could you tell us one software product that you think is very elegantly built, something that you admire, one of the software?
Oh, so I'm a big fan of macOS. I'm a big fan of Linux. I'm a big fan of Android. I think those are, on one hand, consumer products, but on the other hand, they built so good that they fit now everything, and I like it very much.
Which was the first one you said? Which OS?
iOS, the Mac.
iOS. Yeah. All right, macOS. All right. Yeah, all Linux based. Yeah, that's cool.
And if we are talking about like software for developers or something like that, then it's the VS Code. I like it very much. One of the best tools in this place. And I remember the VI, starting from VI, going through all permutations of it, from notebook to JetBrains to whatever. The VS Code is neat. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been there for really, really long as well. That's really cool about it. So something that, being a CTO, you didn't know about being a CTO before you were one. Anything on those? Any thoughts on that? What's it like being a
Yeah.
CTO and something that you didn't expect?
Yeah, so many people think differently about the CTO. My vision of CTO, what CTO basically does in my view, or what I'm trying to do, so the role of the CTO is to connect business with the technical part. This is where everything starts, and this is where everything ends. You need to understand what business need and translate this need to the technical guys. And on the other hand, understand the technical limitations or technical complications and translate it back to the business. So balancing between business and tech, this is the role of the CTO in my view.
Really cool answer. And I think just your situation of being even a co-founder along with CTO, I think gives you that unique perspective to have to balance both of these really well. Yeah. Last question for you, Eli. Your favorite source for finding out what's new and happening in the tech space?
Yeah, so Reddit, many very good communities. I like it very much. This is my source, not only for tech stuff, but for non-tech stuff, one of the best. The second thing is many good resources on Medium. And some good resources on LinkedIn also. I'm following few very interesting folks with very interesting thoughts around. And obviously the thoughts leaders, like starting from Viktor Farcic and going through many other good folks in this area. Yeah, that's, but Reddit and LinkedIn, Medium, that's the top three.
Yeah, yeah. That's true. I've been getting into Reddit recently as well. It's a cool place. All right. So with that, we come to the end of this conversation. I really enjoyed chatting with you, Eli, and wonderful demo there. I loved looking at what PerfectScale can do. And I'm sure even our viewers really got excited about it, what they saw. So everyone, if you like what you just saw in today's podcast, definitely head over to PerfectScale's website. Book a demo with them and start saving some on your Kubernetes costs. There's lots to be saved. So with that,
and resilience, the most important one. Yeah, the resilience is even more important than saving a few bucks.
Sure. Yeah. I think we should do a whole other episode on that as well next time, just resilience itself. And if you're at KubeCon EU, definitely stop over and meet PerfectScale over there as well. So that we come to the end of this conversation. Thanks for joining us. And thank you so much again, Eli. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dwayne. Thanks for having me here. And hope to see everyone in KubeCon.
All right. Bye-bye.